Welcome. Welcome to the second installment of the 2012 Pizza and Politics Debate Watches. Thank you for joining us tonight. If you're from the community, please know that next week the presidential debate will be back, Debate Watch will be back in Shamlin Theater. The next two will be back in Shamlin Theater. I am so glad to see you all here tonight because I was afraid that people would forget about the venue change. So thank you for coming. I'm Linda Peek Schacht, the Executive Director of the Nelson and Sue Andrews Institute for Civic Leadership here at Lipscomb, and we are so happy to be the co-sponsors of this event. Sponsoring with us is the Institute for Law, Justice, and Society, headed by Randy Spivey. Randy, are you here tonight? And also the Departments of Communication and Journalism and History, Politics, and Philosophy, both in the College of Arts and Sciences, and we thank Dean Norma Burgess for her support of this program as well. And then finally, we give our thanks to our provost, Dr. Craig Bledsoe, who has, from its inception 4 years ago, supported Pizza and Politics. Dr. Bledsoe and I will be teaching a lifelong learning class on this election beginning next Tuesday afternoon. So for those of you who have time and the inclination to come do a 7-week course with us about the elections, you can find out more about it on the Lipscomb website under Lifelong Learning. We again have a very distinguished panel and have added for your pleasure 2 students to the panel tonight. I'm supposed to hear something from the students in the audience. We again have our great moderator, Alan Griggs, who's executive in residence and visiting professor here in our Department of Communication and Journalism. Alan, as you know, had a distinguished career both at Channel 4 and in Boston at the NBC affiliate there, before also going to the dark side of public relations and heading the communications department for the United Methodist Church. For those of you who know, I'm all for PR. I spent my life in it. It was a joke about the dark side. We also have as panelists back with us by popular demand Toby Compton from the state of Tennessee, and we have with him on representing the Republicans tonight Emily Poe, who is the president of the Lipscomb College Republicans. So thank you all for being here. And representing the left side of the spectrum is Allie Dalton, who is the SGA academic chair. Am I right? Academic committee chair. And also someone we're very happy to have here tonight from the Andrews Institute, a member of our leadership council, and the man that the Nashville scene called Nashvillian of the Year for the work that he did during the English-only campaign in bringing the organization and the campaign together around Nashville for all of us. We're so happy to welcome Greg Ramos here tonight. And now it's time for Dr. Mack and the poll. Where are you? Good, good, good. A little as an aside while he's coming up, I spent 6 years of my life working in the United States Senate on the senior leadership staff during the time that Joe Biden was a senator there. So I can tell you that I'm waiting with bated breath to see how soon he sticks his foot in his mouth this evening.
Before we start our survey, as you may have noticed, we have a hashtag for tonight, and we would encourage you to tweet about the debate. It is LU Pizza and Politics. Hashtag LU Pizza and Politics. We have a grand prize, a complimentary tall beverage at Starbucks for the best tweet tonight. So enjoy, and we'll look forward to following the tweets, and we'll announce the winner. The winner must be present to win, so we'll look forward to announcing that at the end. In the center of most of our tables, you'll find some what we call clickers. If you'll go ahead and get those now. We have, I think, about 90 or 95 of them, probably not enough for everybody, but go ahead and take those. If there happen to be an extra clicker or two at your table that is not being used, go ahead and hold it up. And if anybody else in the room would like to use it, find someone who's raising their hand, or there's one right over here. We'd like for as many people who want to participate as possible. We're going to have a mixture of demographic questions and some questions that are taken from the Pew Center, and maybe a couple of current events questions thrown in as well. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You'll find on the clicker buttons ranging from or starting with A or 1. And we're going to start out with some demographic questions. So when I press the green button, that means the poll will be open. We'll start with something I hope will be fairly simple. Tell us about yourself. Male, press A, and female, or male, press B, female, press A. Make sure I get it right. So let's start the poll. You may change your vote until the poll closes. So in all of these questions, if you press the wrong button, you can press the right one. I see we're up to 76 votes. 77. Female, press A. Male, press B. We're up to 82. I think we have about 90 or so. So if, again, there are any clickers that are not being used, go ahead and hold them up. We'd like to have as many people as possible to take advantage of them. We'll close the poll of this question in just about 5 seconds, and we'll see the demographic makeup of this audience. All right, pretty evenly split. 53% male. Let's start with a question. Let's continue with a question about age. We'd like to see how many first-time voters there might be. So if you're 21 or younger, press A. 22 to 29, press B, etc. Now we're up to 90. All right, very good. A lot of first-time voters in here. That will be very important as we watch this debate tonight. Let's talk about the candidates that we'll see tonight. What is your overall opinion of Joe Biden? Very favorable, press A. Mostly favorable, press B. Mostly unfavorable, C. Very unfavorable, D. We'll see how this audience compares to the nationwide Pew Center poll from a couple of days ago. And let's close the poll. All right. So 36 mostly unfavorable, 28 very unfavorable. If we add the favorables, we have 36% favorable rating for Joe Biden. We'll compare this to the national audience in just a few moments. All right, what about Paul Ryan? Your overall opinion of Paul Ryan? We'll give it about 5 more seconds for you to make up your mind about overall or looks, however you'd like to answer. All right, here are your results for Paul Ryan. If we add up, we have about 60 or about 2/3 or so a favorable rating. The national poll from the Pew Center from yesterday, I believe it was, had a 44% favorable rating for Ryan, 39% favorable rating for Biden. All right, let's try a couple of current event questions. Paul Ryan is a U.S. representative from what state? What state is Paul Ryan a U.S. representative from? We have 60 votes. We have 70 votes. We'll close the poll in about 5 seconds. All right. He is from Wisconsin. A little bit less than half of you got that right. So he has a little bit of explaining himself to do. Let's move on to Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a former senator representing what state? Joe Biden is a former senator representing what state? We'll close the poll in about 5 seconds. All right, he is from Delaware, born in another state, but representing Delaware as a senator. 42% of you got that right. All right, let's move on to some opinion questions. Answer this. How important is tonight's debate in influencing your vote? Would you say it is very important? Go ahead and press A. Somewhat important, press B. Not very important, press C. And we're about to close the poll. All right. Just over half of you say not very important, but 46% are saying very to somewhat important. We asked this question at the end of last week, so let's ask it right now. If the election were held right now, how would you vote? If you're definitely for Obama right now, press A. If you're leaning toward Obama right now, press B. Leaning toward Romney right now, press C. Definitely toward Romney, press D. And it mirrors pretty closely to where we were at the end of last week. So it'll be interesting to see how tonight changes things. 46% of you definitely toward Romney, another 16 leaning toward Romney. Last question before we turn things over to the panel. Whom do you expect to win tonight? Whom do you expect to win tonight? If you think Joe Biden will win, press A. Paul Ryan, press B. And we're about to close the poll. All right, 2/3 of you expect a Paul Ryan win tonight. We'll see what happens. So go ahead and keep tweeting tonight. We'll look forward to reading those tweets. And now we'll turn things over to the panel. Alan?
Jimmy, thank you very much. We're glad that you all are here with us this evening. From last week, we have some panel members, and we're joined by 2 students this evening, so we'll have an interesting perspective on that. All right, guys, a lot has happened in 1 week. We've sort of reversed roles here. Last week, we were thinking that Mitt Romney had nothing to lose by going all out, and in fact, a lot of pundits believe that he won that debate, and it appears he's in the driver's seat a little bit now with some momentum going for him. So, Toby, I'll open with you. General question, what does Paul Ryan have to do tonight to keep that momentum going or to prevent it from stopping?
Well, first off, it's incredible to see so many people here. There must be a lot of extra credit in the room. That's good. Or free pizza. So Paul Ryan tonight. So last week, obviously, Governor Romney had a fantastic evening. He showed well. The polls this week have proved that. Although we haven't seen a lot of movement in Ohio, in other swing states, we've seen a bump come out. So tonight, where it tees things up is Paul Ryan has to show up and do well. He's going to prove that he is a master of the subjects that are presented. He's going to show himself to connect to the middle class and younger Americans, which I think you'll see this evening. And he really has to hold his own. Joe Biden, while we all have heard he's gaffe prone, he's a seasoned debater on this level. He's ran for president twice. He was a senator for many years. This is not foreign territory for him.
Yeah.
He can rise to the occasion. And we remember 4 years ago, he did very, very well against Sarah Palin. Tonight, if Biden pushes and Ryan does well, I mean, I think that's going to be good for Ryan. I think that Biden has to show a little bit more and really rise up, particularly the way the impressions were from last week's debate by President Obama.
All right, Greg, what about it?
I'm hoping that Vice President Biden will bring a little bit of what we were lacking last week, and that's passion, that's some energy, and that's enthusiasm. And you know what? I've heard him speak here in Nashville, as a matter of fact. He is one heck of a speaker. He spoke at the Democratic Party's Jackson Day, a celebration that goes on every year. And he really had the crowd there at that event in the palm of his hand. And as Toby was saying, he did well 4 years ago in the debate with Sarah Palin. As for the president last week, I was going to say this, is I think what we saw a lot, and we've heard a lot of it, but I think it was a kind of a prevent defense. Everything was going well for the president. The polls were going in the direction that he wanted them to go. I think he was being advised to be cautious, don't come off as angry, don't be condescending. And as a result of that, he lost that passion, that enthusiasm, and unfortunately, he became boring. So I think one thing that Vice President Biden is going to bring back in tonight's debate is that passion that was lacking last week. And the stakes are high for him. I think it'll be tough on the Democrats if we have 2 weeks in a row with subpar performances. So in terms of the pressure, I think it's higher on Joe Biden tonight than it is on Congressman Ryan. By the way, one thing to look for is whether or not the Vice President refers to Mr. Ryan as a congressman, or as the way that he's already expressed that he wants to be referred to as Mr. Ryan, trying to distance himself from those unfavorable ratings in Congress.
Is he going to come out strong, Vice President? Is he going to come out strong and keep the momentum going, you think?
I think he is. I think he's going to come out and be more on the offensive.
Okay.
And I think that'll happen. And you know, he's got some things to work with. There were a couple, if you all heard the Republican convention, or if you saw that, there were some things the next day that Congressman Ryan was criticized for, as far as the factual accuracy of his assertions. You know, the plant closing that occurred with GM, blaming that on the president. Unfortunately, the plant closed in December of 2008. The president didn't take office until January of 2009. So I think some things like that, and the 47% comment of Governor Romney, those are things that I expect to hear tonight.
And it's a good altitude tonight.
Yeah,
The altitude's a lot better.
All right, let's ask our two students. What are you expecting this evening, Emily?
I'm expecting Paul Ryan to come out and be willing to defend himself and to hold the name well. I think if he does really well, then it will help Mitt Romney, and Biden has a lot to lose.
By the way, we need to say that in a conversation earlier, she told me that she had a chance to meet Paul Ryan, and you were favorably impressed, right?
Oh, yes. He spoke without a teleprompter, no notes. He got up there and said all of the right numbers. He was very impressive as a speaker, and as somebody said in the audience, I don't know who it was, he's very good looking, so.
Of course. All right, Allie Dalton, representing the Democrats. What are you expecting?
Going off what Emily said, I do think that in some ways I'm looking forward to seeing Paul Ryan talk about the actual numbers and how he's going to make that kind of feasible to understand for people who may not know exactly what all these intricate numbers that he normally kind of spews out are. And so I'm interested to see that, especially because I know Mitt Romney is very broad in his approach, and as opposed to the way Ryan goes about being very factual. And I'm interested to see how that goes, whether it agrees or disagrees. And I do think Vice President Biden needs to do a very good job tonight, but I do think he has the experience to carry it through, and I'm looking forward to that.
Toby, Paul Ryan has a reputation of being an intellectual in Congress, something like a wonk, I guess, loves figures and that sort of thing. How does he strategize in terms of dealing with Joe Biden? Joe Biden being the as we said, the seasoned veteran. He ran for president twice. He's gone through many of these debates. How does he de-wonkify himself, if you will, or does he want to do that in order to relate to the common man, the common woman out there?
Well, You know, I've met Paul Ryan. He's an interesting guy and very likable. And it's really important to remember where he came from. Fairly modest upbringing and whatnot. But this is a guy who is, you know, a personal trainer. He connects to people. He did not come up in the traditional political ways. He kind of got, frankly, lucky. And he's been in Congress for, you know, he's 44 years old. He's been in Congress for 14 years. I'm not doing something right. I must be way behind or something. So he's a likable guy. He relates well. And he just has to let that come out. He's got great kids, great family story. And I don't know that there's a certain air of wonkiness that surrounds him. So not only is he just going to be likable and connected, the other thing he's going to do, and this is something that, you know, from a communication standpoint, and we talk about this in class sometimes, the first and foremost thing, he is new to this stage and new to this debate. So he's got to get his nerves under control, and he's going to have to present himself well. It's a different format tonight. You know, last week everyone was standing up, and there was more of a direct, traditional engagement. We're sitting down tonight, and it's going to be very interesting to see how they engage one another and how he does that. Biden is a friendly guy. I mean, he's kind of like your likable uncle, right? And so it'll be interesting to see how he portrays himself. Is he the likable nephew, as I think Rod might say?
You know, Alan, if I could, one of the challenges that I think Paul Ryan will have tonight on that issue of being a policy wonk is separating himself from the differences in the proposals by Mitt Romney. And when I say that, one of the things that Joe Biden, I'm sure, is very well versed on is the fact that Paul Ryan has submitted 2 budget proposals, and those budget proposals are pretty specific, and so there's a lot of ammunition there. There's a lot of fodder for questions and so on. One of the challenges that I think Paul Ryan is going to have tonight is defending Mitt Romney as opposed to what he has proposed. One of the things that Governor Romney has criticized President Obama about is this $716 billion cut or proposed cut to Medicare, and you all probably know about that. And the administration says that's really what are designed as savings in Medicare, and will actually be used to lower prescription costs and extend the life of Medicare for until 2018, I think the year is. But that same cut was in both of the Paul Ryan budget proposals. So he's being critical, especially Governor Romney, being critical of the president for cutting this alleged $716 billion amount. But Paul Ryan is going to have to defend why he did the same thing in his own 2 budget proposals.
Emily, what impresses young people about Paul Ryan?
Well, certainly his looks, but he's very smart, charismatic, and he's not afraid to take a challenge head on and to deal with it, whether favorable or not. He takes a stand, and that's something to be admired right now, I think. Even when those who are attacking him, he has no problem taking the difficult challenge and saying, yeah, that is what I believe.
And what do you want to hear him say tonight as far as young people are concerned? Or I can come back and pose the same question to Allie.
The same question.
As far as what do you want Joe Biden to say?
I definitely want him to address the Pell Grants, which I know that's something that Paul Ryan is not necessarily favorably looking towards. You know, he wants to cut them basically. And for me, I know I'm a first-generation college student, so for me it was essential to have a really great financial aid package to come to college. And I'm also a campus tour guide, so I experienced this with other students who are not able to come here because of not having enough financial aid. And so I think for me, I'm looking forward to things that directly affect me as a student and future students as well.
Okay. Toby, what's the big, tell us some of the big subjects that are going to be on the table. I think we all know, but let's go over them just briefly. What do you think will be the hot topics?
Clearly, they're going to be in the budget. I mean, as Greg said, Paul Ryan's prepared 2 budgets. One of his budgets actually passed the House. He has a record in that regard, so you're going to see a lot of engagement on that. Obviously, jobs in the economy coupled with that. You clearly will probably get into some of the other the cuts. I mean, I joked last week about Big Bird being the kind of the big takeaway. It happened.
We heard a lot about Big Bird this
Yeah,
week.
and so what other in that kind of perhaps softer cuts arena, social arena, will they try to differ on? Because tactically, if I was advising Biden, that's where I would go. I would want them to flush out more things like that that are relatable to the American people. And that way, I could say, oh, look what they're going to do. Same thing for advising the other side and advising Ryan. I would say, well, why haven't they passed a budget? He can speak with authority to that.
Yep.
They've proposed a budget, but they haven't passed a budget. And so there'll be some interesting takes on that, I think.
I hope we get some specific information. I hope you can hear me too. I hope we get some specific information on what was debated during the presidential debate last week. Remember when they were talking about the $5 trillion tax cut? And there was a lot of controversy, and there's been a lot of controversy this week. And President Obama was saying, wait a second, that's what you've been talking about for the last 2 years. Well, sure enough, when you talk about a 20% across-the-board tax cut, it's actually $4.8 trillion. Congressman Ryan was asked, I think this past Sunday on Fox News, either this Sunday or the Sunday before, by Chris Wallace. Well, okay, you've got that 4.8 trillion or $5 trillion tax cut, but you're also talking about deductions and closing deductions and closing loopholes. What are they? And his response at that time was, that would take too long to explain. I hope we hear something about that tonight, and more specifics, because this will be an opportunity for the two men to go ahead and put it on the table and give us information that I think we need to know before electing our next president of the United States.
Yeah, and this debate will cover both foreign and domestic issues. Foreign issues, you see, Toby?
Oh, certainly. I mean, clearly, even it seems like every day something's coming out of the situation that happened in Benghazi. It'll probably come up on some level tonight. But I suspect the majority of the debate will probably be more domestic than it really would be foreign, because that really is so much more in the purview of the president and something that's going to be discussed more next week. So I got to think it'll be more domestic issues, I think.
Afghanistan, maybe?
I think that will come up, and if it does come up, I think the vice president actually has an advantage just because of his greater experience in foreign issues. I think that will come up, especially with what's been going on in Benghazi and some of the revelations that we're hearing about here in the last week. I think that'll be a hot topic. But I agree with Toby. I think it'll be primarily domestic issues. And among other things, I think that's where Paul Ryan is especially strong.
And there, in terms of foreign policy, foreign affairs experience, I mean, Ryan really lacks in that area. There's no doubt. But as would anyone, having been a congressman and having just suddenly been elevated to this stage.
Allie Dalton, what else do you want to hear tonight?
I would love to hear about women's issues. That's kind of my forte, and I feel like that was something that was very neglected in the past debate, which I was really disappointed about, because I feel like that's where they vary significantly. And as a woman, part of my economy is things like the wage gap and things like that I think are part of what we should be talking about. And I hope to hear something more about that, because I do think that you can see the differences very clearly when it comes to that.
Emily?
I would also like to hear about women issues as well. While I am opposite of her views on what is allowed and what a woman's issues are, I do think that's a distinct difference. In the polls show that people are in favor of more conservative values now. So I would like to see that.
Okay, let's go behind the scenes, and there's 5 minutes to the debate, 4 or 5 minutes now. What are his advisors telling Paul Ryan right now?
I got to think he's just trying to relax, clear his head. He knows the few punches he needs to throw. They know some of the kind of the pat answers to several of the questions. They're back there right now, just probably trying to get in to relax and to remember to focus. As much as anything, and as we touched on this again earlier, is it's the nonverbal cues that really matter here. We saw it last week. The president looking down. There was a lot of, you heard the pundits talk about that a lot. So just having Paul Ryan remember how to engage. Biden will be very comfortable. Like I said, he's a very comfortable fellow.
But so much is riding on this, Greg Ramos. So much more than last week, right?
I think the pressure's on, as I was
I mean,
mentioning.
Biden cannot afford a misstep, right?
And you know, Linda already mentioned it. One of the things that he's known for is his gaffes, and he has to avoid those by all means. I'm wondering if there are going to be a couple things brought up against him. You know, one of the things that he said inadvertently this past, or I think either this past week or the week before, is unfortunately is that the middle class has been buried for the last 4 years. Well, those last 4 years are the Obama administration years. He didn't mean to say that at all, but I'm sure we're going to hear that today. This is his opportunity, but as I say, I think in the times that I've heard him, including the debate, the same debate 4 years ago, he did really well. And I think we're going to hear a pretty confident, comfortable person tonight. Can I mention one other thing, Alan? One of the things that I heard today that I just wanted to mention is the Pew Hispanic poll. Still, it shows 69 to 21%. Obama having a lead with Hispanics. And I mention that because the last election, President Obama really owes his presidency to Hispanics in the United States. And it may boil down to that this time. Things are really, really close.
You know, folks, it gets interesting as these debates near and near. Pundits start talking a little bit about everything. Tonight we have a female moderator, which is one of the very few times we've had that. Does that change the game plan, you think?
I don't think so. I think you treat people equally.
I think so, because I think, at least I hope so, that she'll bring up women's issues and things that weren't discussed in the past. And I feel like she's a little bit stronger character-wise, so she might direct the conversation a little bit
All right.
more.
Greg, does Biden have to tone it down a little bit because of this?
I think he has to be careful, but I'm hoping that Martha Raddatz maintains greater control than we saw last week. I think the moderator last week lost control, and as a result, things broke down a little bit. Biden will tone it down a little bit because of that.
Okay, Toby?
I think he'll do. I mean, I think she'll do just fine. You know, obviously this week there was a little bit of controversy about her, her and Obama. Obama evidently went to her wedding or something of that nature.
Yeah.
I thought that was just I thought that was just kind of some fluff story. I didn't think there was much to it.
I think he had a law school classmate.
Law school classmate. There
marrying
was some.
her, yeah.
They tried to create some sort
Yeah.
of controversy on that. I don't think that it'll be just fine. She'll do a great job. She's very well respected. This will be a good debate.
All right, so we have the conference table, and that's probably going to change a few things here. But folks, watch, because the debate's going to be divided into 9 sections, 10 minutes each. It's going to be really interesting watching how the moderator controls this debate, unlike last week. Any last thoughts from any of you?
It's going to be fun.
It'll be a good one. I'm excited to see it.
People will really engage with this debate because I think you've got one character they don't know, one that maybe does gaffes sometimes. I think it'll be an interesting debate. It could be spicy.
All right, folks, enjoy.
The last question we asked before the debate was, who did you expect to win? And now we're going to ask, who won? If you think Joe Biden won, press A on your clicker. If you think Paul Ryan won, press B. We have 60 votes so far. We'll close the poll in about 5 seconds. %64 of you said that Paul Ryan won. Let's ask this question. If the election were held now, how would you vote? We'll see if there's any difference in the way we asked this question beforehand. Definitely for Obama, press A. Leaning toward Obama, leaning toward Romney. Definitely toward Romney, press D. We'll close this in about 5 seconds. As we look at this, we can now compare to see if there's any difference beforehand. The blue graphs are before, and the red is after. So the blue beforehand, definitely for Obama, 24%, down to 11%, definitely for Obama now. Definitely toward Romney was at 46%, and definitely toward Romney at 53%. We'll leave this graph on the screen and turn things over to Alan and the panel.
Jimmy, thank you, and let's get some immediate reaction. Greg, let's start with you down at the end. How did it go for Senator Biden this evening?
One of the things I was asking everybody to look out for is whether or not Joe Biden would bring that passion, that energy. And I don't think there's any question that he came in enthused, he came in energetic, and he went after it. And I think it's a good thing. We'll have to see how it pans out and how everybody will evaluate it. But I like the fact that he was excited about what he had to talk about, and he came in with a real energy.
Excited? Was he a little overbearing? Or?
A couple times. I mean, I noticed that one of the things that I was uncomfortable with is if he would have directed all that excitement to Congressman Ryan. A couple times it was directed toward Martha Raddatz. We were talking beforehand that does it make a difference that we had a female moderator, and we'll have to see. It may have. I wish he would have directed those statements really just to Congressman Ryan and not to Martha.
All right. Toby, what about Congressman Ryan?
He did well. I mean, he was calm. Even when pushed, he was calm. He chose his words carefully. I think he tried to articulate a message, and he tried to really hold himself up and move the ball forward. It was interesting that Biden interrupted him so many times. He never lost his cool. He never seemed to get rattled by that. And I think that what you're going to see tonight, when we all go home, we look at the polls, we look tomorrow, and we look at the dial test, you're going to see that among people who came into this with truly independent, open mind, they're not one way or the other. I think you're going to see that they didn't like this rough and tumble Biden. He was indeed passionate, but the kind of fun uncle, likable Joe Biden was somewhere else, and this guy was completely different. It was completely a flip-flop from where things were with the president.
Allie, I know you were tweeting earlier your
Yeah.
disappointment about
What-
some things not covered.
Right, but they did end up covering one of the things that I thought was important. But one tweet that I really liked from one of the Washington Post reporters was, "For political junkies and decided voters, this is a great debate. For the rest, it's everything they hate about politics." And I did notice that throughout my newsfeed, and I was talking to Mr. Ramos earlier about this. I think that one of the important things about the debate tonight was to revitalize like the young vote within the Obama campaign. And I feel like a lot of my friends that were really disappointed last week were tweeting up a storm about how excited they were and how they really think that this is going to pick up for the rest of the period leading up to the election. So I think it did its job as far as that.
But no immigration talk, no women's...
I hope that gets covered, but I mean, we do have, a few debates left, but I was
Yeah.
glad that the women's rights issue came up.
Okay. Emily?
I liked the softer Joe towards the end. I like aggressiveness, but his was way over the top for me. It was repeatedly interrupting Paul Ryan, and so that completely turned me off to him. Not that I was going to vote for him, but it was just too much. I felt like Paul Ryan offered a cool head. And towards the end, when Biden became softer and more personal and more logical and quick screaming at the television and at the moderator, I felt like he was heard and recepted better.
To the whole panel, did we really learn anything new about both these candidates tonight?
I learned one thing, and tonight we talked about abortion for the first time. That was tough. I could feel the sense in the room was, oh, here it comes. One thing that's significant on that issue that I'm going to point out is tonight we had two Catholic vice presidential candidates. Okay, I'm Catholic. This is a big discussion. The Ryan position that you heard tonight was one that I was waiting to hear. The official church, Catholic Church doctrine is against abortion under any circumstances. That includes rape, that includes incest, that includes the life of the mother. That was Paul Ryan's position up to now. What I heard tonight was a change of his position, because the difference in Governor Romney's position is that he makes those 3 exceptions: rape, incest, and life of the mother. Tonight we heard Paul Ryan, and he's going to catch flack for this from the Catholic Church and Catholic followers. He changed his position, based on Catholic doctrine, and adopted Governor Romney's position. That's a big deal.
Toby, what did we learn?
I don't know that we learned really that much. I mean, one guy said one thing, the other one refuted it. It kind of went back and forth. Once again, we got kind of convoluted in some of the dynamics of the budget talk and large numbers. If we're just talking about, the folks who haven't made their mind up at this point, they're looking at different things. They're not really interested in the head-to-head argument. They're looking at these other subtle factors, and Biden didn't bring that to the table tonight. So that's what I'm. And then by the way, it's 16-13 Titans right now. So
Thanks for that. What about you 2 students? Learn anything new?
I don't feel like I did, but I do. That's why I say that I think it was important, because I do think it revitalized that, not just the young voters, but just everybody that's supporting President Obama. And it's important to hang on to those votes that we do have already.
Okay.
Again, I'm with
Okay.
Mr. Compton.
So much back and forth. A lot of figures being thrown around. Is this going to be a debate that's going to be marked by the Biden smirk or the Biden, and I say that in all candidness, obviously, but with respect. He did appear to be a little overpowering at times. The smirk, the laugh.
my friend,
He just can't control that, can he?
No, he.
And I think
he did
I think that might hurt him.
And he did that at the beginning. Later on, he took a more solemn
He did.
approach.
He did.
Calmed down, and that stopped. I think he was really trying to be friendly and appeal to the camera at first. Can I mention this too? There was one other thing you were asking about what we learned. Well, there's one thing about what we didn't learn tonight, and there was a lot of going back and forth with these figures, and this is going to be one of these things where I'm going to have to listen to parts of it again, because some of it was just hard to follow. But remember, before the debate, I asked you to be tuned in to the discussion about this $5 trillion tax cut. And we're talking about 20% across the board cuts. And the fact of the matter is, it does result in $5 trillion in tax cuts. I guess the exact figure is 4.8 trillion. But I also asked you to be on the lookout and be listening carefully to see what specific deductions and loopholes that Governor Romney and Congressman Ryan were proposing to eliminate. And I think this is a big deal tonight too. Remember that response to Chris Wallace on Fox a couple of weeks ago, where he says he didn't have time to get into it. Paul Ryan I'm talking about. We didn't hear anything about that either tonight. That's still a gaping hole that I personally would love to have addressed, because I think it's crucially important before we elect a president of the United States to know exactly what this plan is, so we can figure out if it works mathematically or not. Right now, there's too much of a hole in it. We can't really even put the calculator to it.
Toby?
well, your question, yes, I think that, again, Saturday Night Live, people like that, they're going to go over the top with the way Biden acted in the first 30, 45 minutes of the debate. No way around it.
Yeah.
He did a lot of smirking to my friend. I stopped counting at around 20, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And that just come off as really disingenuous. People didn't like it, and he had the big smirkiness to him, and it did not play well. And I think that later on tonight, we'll see in the polls and stuff that did not play well. I will bring up that, and I don't want to steal anything, but the State Department has already retracted what Biden said about the whole situation in Benghazi, and and I think that there's going to be several things come out that's going to overshadow a lot. Paul Ryan won this debate.
Okay. We certainly know now what the word malarkey means, I think, right? All right, any questions from the audience out there?
On the election?
Yeah, will people consider
I don't know that. I don't know how that affects anybody's vote. I mean, you know, in the broader electorate, I don't know. I don't think that will really translate into someone choosing, you know, Paul Ryan and Governor Romney over Obama Biden because of Hillary Clinton. I don't think so.
The only thing I can say is I don't think it will have much of an effect. And by the way, well, I just don't think it'll have much of an effect either way on this election. That's my response. Who knows?
Hi. I also had a big question about the actual numbers that Paul Ryan was referring to in this plan. I just don't see how the math works. It doesn't make sense to me. So I was kind of in the middle between voting, but now I'm leaning towards Obama because it's common sense to me. The numbers just don't add up. I mean, how do you guys really feel about that? I mean, people keep jumping around there. Like, nobody sees this big target. Like, the numbers don't add up.
That's the point I was making, is that I don't think we have enough information to even know if the numbers add up. I was hoping for some detail. And quite frankly, folks, and I think Vice President Biden did a good job in bringing this up, and that's the question of, is the mortgage interest deduction at risk? That's a really big deal for the middle class. That's a major deduction. That's going to change the landscape dramatically. But we don't know. We don't know. So my problem is we don't even have enough information, at least that on the surface, to put a calculator to it, to figure out if the math works. We just don't know it. I think we have to basically go on trust, and that, with all sincerity, bothers me.
Yeah, I think that when you hear Paul Ryan talk about this, there's a lot of concepts, really complicated economic concepts about how we expand the base of taxation and how you're able to lower certain things while expand other things. And you really have to dig in and understand some really tricky economics and some tricky finance and accounting principles. And I can't sit here and explain them to you myself. And so I won't even try to get into that. It's difficult. If you look at the trust issue, I mean, you know, you'll have to choose for yourself one side or the other side, and see what you come up with.
But that's the thing. If somebody out there, and a lot of people out there, the American public, try to make sense of what was said tonight, you get lost. You get lost in the figures. You get lost in these terribly complicated issues. So what do you end up doing?
Well, that's why it becomes so important to those nonverbal cues, how you conduct yourself. Because that's what moves people. Because look, tonight didn't really. I mean, hardcore D's got fired up because hey, Biden showed up and did something that Obama didn't do.
Right.
Ours thought, hey, Paul Ryan's cool. He looks good, right? You know, things like that.
Yep.
So it's that middle swath of people. And they don't understand the facts and figures. They're looking for
most
different
people
things.
don't.
And so that's why this debate is going to be defined probably more towards Ryan, because he held his own. He was pretty clear, pretty articulate, didn't get rattled or flustered.
It's going to be won or lost based on personality. That's what you're saying?
You know, isn't that a sad comment, though? I mean, this is an opportunity to provide some substance. This is an opportunity to provide us with detail. This is an opportunity for us to make an informed decision, because that's what that's the basis of a democracy, is to have an informed electorate. But I don't think we were provided that tonight, and that's really a crucial thing. That's why I mentioned it to you before the debate, and that's why I'm frustrated after the debate. I will say one thing that I think Vice President Biden made another good point when we're talking about small businesses, and this is a fact that I've heard forever. 97% of the small businesses in America today, these job generators, these job creators, make actually less than $250,000. So it's how you define small businesses. Remember, they were talking about small businesses are going to be subject to greater taxes. Not 97% of the small businesses. They'll be under that $250,000 figure that we talked about. And I think the Vice President did a good job in pointing that out.
Okay.
Okay, so, can you hear me? Okay. One point that was being made up there was that Paul Ryan was holding his own and the nonverbal cues matter because he was more composed. And I admit he was very classy in the way he handled the debate. But might that not also be a reflection of your personal political views? Because people could also be looking at it like, and I've been looking at reactions online from Facebook and Twitter and other very reliable sources, I guess. But, you know, because these are the authority, I guess. But people are also arguing that, you know what, we want somebody with that kind of passion that Biden is showing, and he's feisty, and we want somebody that, you know, has that energy and that fire, that can't keep himself composed when he's hearing these, you know, these lies, you know, and things like that, if you want to call it like that. So could that not also go in his favor and say that he won the debate?
Well, I think, so you make a good point. Clearly, I bring a bias. I clearly am a Republican, therefore will think that my guy did great. There's no doubt about that. I think the way we'll discern that is later on tonight when we get the dial test back, where we test the independent voters. That will tell us, that will be a big indicator. The second thing will be the way the polls kind of reflect in the next couple of days. That I think will be, that's the real barometer how we can really kind of measure this. But there were, you know, just in terms of communication style, there were several times where he got so passionate, he was talking so loud, and it was hard to listen to what, you know, Joe Biden said some good things. He said some very good things, but sometimes it was so difficult to listen to him say those things because it was, you know, he was kind of growling at you a little bit, and you know, that's off-putting for a lot of folks.
Why do you think he calmed down at the end?
It was odd. There was a certain point in time where he changed.
It was a question about abortion. I feel like
That may have changed it. Yeah, that changed it.
I
I
think
agree.
that's kind of where it went from there.
That's a good
Okay.
point.
Yep.
It just became a more solemn debate.
Yep.
Why do you all personally watch the debate? I felt like the entire time it was a matter of I'm better than this person or my campaign is better than this person rather than I can do this for the country, and just always comparison. So why do you all watch the debate, and how do you think we can change the debate, I guess, so it can actually influence people and people will understand what's going on and make informed decisions based off of
Emily Paul,
debates?
go.
Well, I mean, I like politics because I feel like it's the best way to make the biggest impact on people positively if you use it for that. So that's why I watch politics. I watch these debates because I want to be fired up about my candidate. And while that might be selfish, I also feel like there's a lot of facts in that. The fact checkers, like when I got up here, I went to Washington Post and they had already retracted what Biden had said. So there's a lot of facts. There are lies in there as well. But I feel like it's the best way to get both sides. And if they say a lie right here, right now, and this candidate knows it, call them on it and bring it forth to the American people. So that's why I watch the debates.
But you have an overriding interest because you feel that politics is a good way to make positive change.
Yes.
Okay, Allie?
Well, I too love politics, of course, that's why we're up here. But I think at the core, one of the things that I love about just the debates is that it's a time where, more so than like a national convention or something, young people like yourselves and myself can come out here, even if we don't like politics, even if we just come out for the pizza. It's a time where you might this might be the only time that you get to hear what the candidates are saying because you might not care to find it elsewhere. So I think for me, it's one of those things where I think it's beneficial. I would watch it anyway, but I think just for you as a student, or as a young person, you know, if you don't have time, this is the best time to watch what the candidates are saying and what they stand for.
You know, I would like to say that we could put substance over form. And I came to learn, and I've told you about some of the things, the questions that I had. That's a great question. Two of the young students here who were here, I think they're gone now, were friends of my 24-year-old son, and they both served in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and I wanted to talk to them afterwards because I've seen how those wars literally affected their lives, and in much of it was not for the better. And so I was really interested when they had the discussion about our departure date in 2014 from Afghanistan. You know, we're war weary right now. We've just come out we ended the war in Iraq. We're about to end the war in Afghanistan. And lo and behold, we're talking about the possibility of committing more troops in Syria. We've got the situation in Libya. But I was really interested in Congressman Ryan's answer. Basically, he was agreeing with the 2014 departure date. Did you hear that? But when asked, he didn't want to make it a hard departure date because he didn't want to signal our enemy, I suppose, is what he said. But when asked what conditions would warrant us staying in Afghanistan in 2014, he didn't have an answer. He was really flustered on that. And that was important to me. And thank goodness, in my opinion, especially seeing these two young men who I saw grow up with my son and served in Afghanistan and Iraq. Thank goodness, from my standpoint, we're leaving Afghanistan in 2014. And Joe Biden was emphatic that that's a hard date. We are leaving, period. He said period twice. Period, period.
Toby?
Why did I wouldn't have watched the debate tonight if Dr. Mack hadn't asked me to be here. I'd be at the Titans game, or I'd be watching Live on the Mummies down at Live on the Green. I'd read about this stuff in the morning. But in truth, I probably would have DVR'd it and watched it tonight late. But
It's all that money we paid you to come by here.
yeah, it's about the money. It's big money. No,
Good pizza.
And pizza. No, I would have definitely watched it. Look, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. And this is why you're in school. You're here to get informed and to be a part of this larger conversation. And that's why you watch this. And that's why you should try to get through some of the fluff out there. And you should really start you should read the Wall Street Journal. You should read the New York Times. You should do those things because it makes you a better person. It makes you more informed. And ultimately, it makes you a better employee. You know, because tomorrow when I'm at work, Greg's at work, we do a lot of civic things together. And this is what we're talking about. And so it makes you a part of a larger conversation. Fundamentally, just watching the debate tonight, it didn't specifically do something for me. It didn't change my mind. I didn't really get informed about anything really particularly new. But it's about the bigger context of things and how that you can apply that in terms of your life, in terms of your work, and things of that nature.
Next presidential debate is just Tuesday, and that's going to be a town hall format, by the way, so questions from the audience. Does this tonight change that in any way? Romney's still on the roll?
Romney's probably on a roll. Generally speaking, Romney's probably on a roll. They capitalized well in the last week. One thing that's happened, the campaign news the past week, part of the campaign news the last week is how well the Obama ads are doing versus the Romney ads. There's a number of reasons for that, including spending totals in key states. It's also about how the Obama campaign has structured their ad buys and things of that nature. So Romney's doing well. He's going to improve in that regard. They got to come out of this strong. They've got the Romney campaign has to tee this up as a win and capitalize on it and go in strong to the town hall format, which, Romney is not as experienced in the town hall format as Obama.
Right. Greg?
I think things are going to continue to get close. This is a presidential race, ladies and gentlemen. It's going down to the wire, and I can say assertively that the president you see during the next debate will be a much more engaged president. I think he's going to be much more willing to challenge Governor Romney. I think he's going to be much different than the last debate that you saw where the president performed.
Okay.
One more question up there.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Cedric, and I was going to ask, so the Republicans mostly know who they're voting for, and the Democrats mostly know who they're voting for. So who do you think the undecided learned from this debate, and who do you think they would vote for right now?
Well, we'll watch tonight. I mean, like I said, we'll watch the dials, and we'll kind of figure that out tonight, where a true undecided person is.
You have any feelings, though, about that one way or the other?
I'm
Okay.
not sure.
I think a lot of people will be frustrated after tonight, and they'll say, well, we learned some things that we didn't know going in, and you know what? We still don't have answers on these things. And which way that drives people, those undecideds, I don't know. But I've got a sense of frustration, and I'm actually pretty much for a particular candidate, but I've got frustration.
Final thoughts from anybody? Emily?
I think the final decision on who those independents will vote for is, she said it about your personality a lot of times. Those who are not necessarily policy-minded individuals, they're looking for somebody who's likable, or they're looking for somebody who kept his cool while maybe being yelled at, or somebody who is able to fire up the base and things along those lines. So I think there's two different kinds of independence.
Okay.
I definitely think that, I'm not exactly sure, just as the two of them said about tonight, but I do think that the town hall style debate could sway a lot of independent voters, just because of the structure of it, and it's a lot more personal. So I think I would wait and see until after that, but as of right now, I can't really say.
Guys, one last comment? Anybody?
I'd just like to say this. I'll go on my soapbox for a minute. It's real important that we have that informed electorate, and I would just encourage all of you to stay informed. And stay informed means not getting your news information from one source. If you like MSNBC, force yourself to watch Fox. If you like Fox, force yourself to watch MSNBC, CNN, the network televisions, because that, firmly believe, gives you the broadest perspective. If you're watching just one source, you're not getting the whole picture.
Good point. Toby?
I completely agree with my friend, Greg.
My friend.
And I'll say that.
Let me give all deference to the congressman, too.
There's probably not a more thoughtful Nashvilleian than Greg Ramos. And he does so many things for our community.
Well, thank you.
And he raises so many good points tonight. And it's good that he's affiliated with Lipscomb.
Okay. Thank you very much, panelists. We appreciate it. Thanks to all of you all for being here this evening. We are living in very important times. It behooves us to keep ourselves educated. Thank you.
Before we go, thank you for tweeting tonight. After talking with our panel, is Stephen Grady still here? Stephen? We'll see if we can find Stephen. Stephen's tweet was selected as the best. He tweeted malarkey plus bean minus Martha equals debate. So we'll see if we can find Stephen tonight. On a lighter note to leave you with, last week you'll remember that one of the top trending tweets was Big Bird, and tonight, you might have noticed, just for a few moments, it was Eddie Munster. Eddie Munster from the Munsters. So on that note, we'll see you Tuesday night back in Shamlin. Have a great night.